Did you know that you've probably entered into dozens, maybe even hundreds, of legal contracts in your life without even realizing it? Today, we're going to break down the surprising laws behind everyday favors, all based on the Civil Code of the Philippines. You are about to see borrowing and lending in a whole new light.
Let's kick things off with something super simple. You borrow a book, you read it, you give it back. Seems straightforward, right? No big deal. Or, hey, maybe you've been on the other side of the coin. A friend's a little short, you spot them some cash, and you trust they'll get it back to you. You know, it just feels like what friends do.
Well, get this. According to the law, those simple acts of trust are actually formal agreements. Yeah, with real rules and real consequences. All right, let's dive into how this all works. So the big legal concept that covers all of this is something called bailment. And this is the absolute key to understanding why lending your car is totally different in the eyes of the law than lending a friend some cash.
The word itself actually comes from an old French term that means to deliver, which makes perfect sense, right? It's basically the formal act of handing over your property to someone else, trusting them to use it for a specific reason, and, well, to give it back.
And in these little dramas, the law gives you and your friend special names. If you're the one doing the lending, you're the bailer, and your friend, the person you're trusting with your stuff, they're the bailee. Okay, now here is the most crucial point. The law doesn't treat all favors the same. Not at all. It makes a massive distinction depending on whether the thing you're lending is meant to be used and returned or used up and replaced. All right, let's head down that first path. This is all about borrowing a specific thing that you have to return. In legal terms, this is called commodity. Think of it this way. You are just a temporary user. If you borrow your friend's car, you have to return that exact car, not just a similar one. Ownership never, ever transfers to you. And that word gratuitous, it's just a fancy way of saying it's free. Because if you paid to use it, well, that's not a loan, that's just a rental. So this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when things go wrong? Let's say you borrow a laptop from a colleague. You're at a coffee shop, and poof, it gets stolen. Who is on the hook for that loss? Generally, the law is on the borrower's side. If the loss was because of a fortuitous event, and that's just legal speak for something random and completely out of your control, like a robbery or a flash flood, the original owner is the one who takes the financial hit. But, and this is a very big but, there are some huge exceptions. And this is where you really got to pay attention, because that responsibility can flip back to you in a second. If you borrowed that laptop for a school project but used it to DJ a party instead, you're liable. Kept it for an extra week without asking, you're liable. The moment you break the terms of that trust, all the risk lands right on your shoulders. Okay, so that was path number one. Now for the second path. This one is all about borrowing things that are meant to be, well, consumed. Things like money or sugar or gas for your car. This is called mutuum, or what you and I would just call a simple loan. With a mutuum, the rules of the game completely change. Here's the big difference. Ownership actually transfers to you. The moment your friend hands you that 1,000 pesos, legally speaking, you own it. Your only obligation is to return the equivalent amount, not those exact same bills. So it might seem like a small detail, but the legal difference between a comodatum and a mutuum is absolutely massive. It really all comes down to 4 key points that change everything about the agreement. And this table lays it all out perfectly. In comodatum, you borrow a non-consumable thing, ownership stays with the lender, and you give back the exact same item. Most importantly, the risk of loss stays with the owner. But with mutuum, you borrow something consumable, ownership transfers to you, and you just pay back the same amount. And that means if that 1,000 pesos gets stolen from your wallet, the risk is yours. You still have to pay your friend back.
And what's crazy is that you make these mutuum contracts all the time. When you deposit money into a bank account, you are legally lending that money to the bank. The bank is the borrower, and you are the creditor. Every single time you swipe your credit card, the bank is giving you a simple loan, a mutuum, right there on the spot.
Of course, when we're talking about money, especially loans, there's usually a price tag attached for the convenience of borrowing it. And that price is interest. Now, if you remember only one thing today, make it this. The law is absolutely crystal clear here. A verbal agreement, a handshake deal to pay interest on a loan, it is not legally enforceable, period. So for a lender to legally charge you interest, they have to hit all 3 of these conditions. 1, it has to be clearly stated. 2, it has to be in writing. And 3, the interest rate itself has to be lawful.
If even one of these is missing, in the eyes of the law, there is no obligation to pay interest. Now, the law actually sees two different kinds of interest. First up is monetary interest. That's the fee you agree to pay for using the money. That's the one that must be in writing. But then you have compensatory interest. Think of this as a penalty for being late. And here's the kicker. This penalty can apply even if it was never part of a written agreement.
So what is that penalty? Well, if you and the lender didn't agree on a specific late fee, the law has a default setting, and that number is 6%. 6% per year on the amount you owe, and the clock starts ticking from the moment you are officially late on the payment.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that whether you're lending a book, a car, or cash, these so-called informal agreements are governed by a very clear set of rules. And understanding that difference between being a temporary user and a temporary owner is everything. It protects your stuff, your finances, and honestly, your friendships. So let me leave you with this thought. The next time a friend asks you for a favor, you'll know exactly what kind of legal agreement you're getting into. The law provides the framework, but the question for you is that friendship and your trust in them worth more than a signature? At least now you can make that choice with your eyes wide open.